right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Remick webinar. I'm Jonathan Hake. Tonight, we are joined with Rachel Fry, our Associate Director, as well as April Garcia, our Assistant Teaching Professor. Tonight, we have a special webinar. We are joined by our lovely Remick leaders. But without further ado, we'll have April take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan. So before we begin and have a chance to get to know our panelists, we are actually going to begin as we begin all things in prayer. We know that tomorrow is the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. If you are watching this at a later date, know that you just celebrated with us, even if you weren't part of this recording. So we're going to first just take a moment to settle, to take a deep breath. Remind ourselves that we are always in the presence of God. Let's pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let's begin first with a reflection. This is from Henry Nouwen. Mary creates a space for us where we can become children as Jesus became a child. It is precisely this childhood that Mary wants us to claim. She who offered an immaculate space for God to take on human flesh wants to offer us a space where we can be reborn as Jesus was born. With the same heart that loved Jesus, she wants to love us. It is a heart that will not make us wonder anxiously whether we are truly loved. It is a heart that has not been marked by the infidelities of the human race, and so will never bring wounds to those who seek peace there. Lord, your mother Mary and her yes to God's request is central to the Advent mystery. Help us to become her children and yours, so that we may be enveloped in the confidence of being truly loved and cared for by you both. Make it possible for us to say yes to your invitations, no matter how reluctantly we may do so. We ask all of this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Fitting this idea of invitation to yes, we have four amazing Remick leaders who have all graduated from our program, who not only confidently said yes to our program, also confidently said yes to school leadership, and also confidently said yes to joining us this evening. And so what I'm going to do is actually take a moment for them to just briefly introduce themselves, and then we will dive on into some questions. We will also have some time at the end of our questions with our panelists in order to answer some of your questions. And so per our usual webinar norm, we will be utilizing the Q&A function. So as you're listening, if any questions do arise, both Rachel and Jonathan are able to answer any of those during the webinar, but also know we'll protect some time at the end to answer those questions. So we'll go ahead and first start with introductions. I'm just going in the order of where your faces are on my Zoom screen, but we'll first start with Mike. Just opportunity just to introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, April. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Brick. I'm from the Diocese of Palm Beach down here in sunny Florida, although it was a bit chilly this morning. It was 50 degrees, our coldest day of the young winter so far for us. I serve at John Carroll Catholic High School in Fort Pierce, Florida, and I'm currently the assistant principal of student life. And I graduated Remick this past July as a member of Remick cohort number 20. And I'm so happy to be here sharing with you all the absolute best graduate program to serve in Catholic schools.
Thanks, Mike. Francesca.
Hi, everyone. My name is Francesca Scimatero. I work in the Archdiocese of New York at Incarnation School. It's in Manhattan in a neighborhood called Washington Heights. It's as far up in Manhattan as you can possibly go. And this is my second year as the principal there. And I graduated Remick in the summer of 2022 with cohort 19.
Thanks, Francesca. Rebecca.
My name is Rebecca Bostic, and I'm in the Archdiocese of LA. I work at an independent Catholic school called Flintridge Sacred Heart Academy that's founded it's sponsored by the Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose. I am principal. I'm in my first year principal. Last year I was assistant principal, and I just graduated from Remick this summer with Mike in cohort 20.
Thanks, Rebecca. Last but not least, Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan Michelle Pettit. I'm in the Diocese of Columbus, Ohio, a little bit chillier here. And I am with cohort 19. Also, I'm at Cristo Rey Columbus High School, so we're a Cristo Rey school, and I'm really proud of that. Yeah.
Thank you. So we're going to first start in many ways to think back. We recognize that discernment is something all of our applicants are deeply amidst, and would really want you to think back to your discernment experience. So to share a little bit about your discernment process in terms of deciding to do Remick, and as you really shared, to really think like who was important in that process, what did you do to prepare, what did you find most helpful, and what would you recommend to someone in the process right now? We are approximately 2 months, a little less than 2 months away from our application deadline. And so just to kind of think about that, we'd love to hear a little bit about your discernment process. So we'll start with Francesca, and then we'll do a whip around, if you will.
Thanks, April. So the first person that comes to mind as most important in my discernment process was my school principal at the time. He was a graduate of the Remick program, and I was a teacher at our school. And I had expressed to him that I was really interested in graduate studies, especially for the community. Like, I was really looking for a professional community of educators to be a part of. And it was a no-brainer for him to recommend Remick to me. It was not as much of a no-brainer for me to just do Remick. I really had to think about it myself and figure out if it was the right decision. And then especially our cohort was thrown a bit of a curveball. We were accepted, and then a month or two later told that we wouldn't be able to go to campus, which is such a sacred part of the process. But ultimately, I knew that community through Zoom was possible. We were doing it in our schools at that time, and it ended up being a saving grace in the pandemic. So talking that through with my principal and a few other teachers at my school as well that were encouraging me to pursue leadership, that was really important in the process and ultimately led to my yes.
Thanks, Francesca. It's really great to hear a little bit about that professional community, but also how much of that nudge of your principal is really important too. What about you, Rebecca? What was your experience like in discernment?
So, yeah, for me, it was the next year. So I was in COVID, and I was in my third year of my school. I had been in administrative roles as a campus minister in the previous high school, and I then was in the classroom and just really felt the pull back to like the big picture of administration. So sort of listening to that, I met with my principal, who indicated that she was retiring soon, and I should, really think about it. So that was sort of a push for me too, to really look at it. And then I actually applied to a couple different programs, because in the independent school world, there's a program at Columbia that was, that's a lot of people, talk about. And I didn't know a ton about Remick, even though I went to Notre Dame as an undergraduate and had friends that had done it. For whatever reason, it just hadn't been on my radar. And as I went through the process of applying, I, answered the questions and thought, like, I love these questions. And in the interview process, those were all moments for me that pulled me closer and closer. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, but choosing between the two programs, it wasn't a hard choice, because I knew I wanted to be in Catholic education, and this was a program that was going to prepare me to be a leader specifically in that context. And yes, it didn't hurt that my principal was a nun, so she was like really specific about like, how about that Catholic one? How about we do that? So, and it was an important piece. And then I think also I'm married, I have 3 kids, so yeah, I don't know how my husband answered this question, but because it was a lot of work and it was time away, but it was the support that of the of my family, of really thinking through, I think, like he said, is it possible for you to get these jobs of like school leadership without this degree? And I was like, no, it's not. And so Remick actually really, I provided a way for me to be able to be there for a really like finite amount of time in the summer, and then do so much at home and in your school community that's really baked into your day-to-day job. And so that's a longer answer than just the discernment, but for me, that was an important piece of figuring out.
It's really helpful to hear also just like that unique perspective of being someone that's so geographically far away. And how important that still is in terms of community. What about you, Ryan? What was your discernment process like?
Yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind for me. Someone at the national office mentioned to me, the national office for the network told me about the Remick program and encouraged me to apply. And I actually hadn't heard of it. My school was undergoing some changes at that time, so I applied for the principal position at my school. Kind of, I mean, there were so many different people that I had talked to through that time, but my husband probably was the one that was like, you should just kind of throw your hat in the ring. Like, there's a lot of changes happening. You care so much about this school. I was a teacher at the time. I didn't have leadership experience, but I thought I'll just go through this process and then just see what happens. So that was happening when this suggestion was made. So I thought, well, I should probably have some kind of training, so whether this works out now or later, I should do something to learn more about what being a principal is. And so I kind of, I stumbled into it, but it was, one of those times in life where a lot of different things are happening at the same time. You're running into like different ideas and thoughts, and you hear them from different places and it comes together. I think I reached out, April, I think I heard from you, and it was like the day before the deadline or something like that. And I didn't know because I hadn't heard of it. And so it was kind of a whirlwind, but it was a lot of just praying about it, talking to different people. Mary Kearney who was the person at the Cristo Rey Network. She put me in touch with a principal of a Cristo Rey school that had graduated from Remick, or he was in Remick at the time. And so I had a chance just to talk to him to hear about his experience, and that was a helpful thing too. So there were just a lot of different elements in play. In the end, it was fantastic. I'm the principal now at my school. I think I forgot to mention that earlier, and I just draw on so many things that I learned all the time, constantly, and I'm so thankful that I was a part of it.
I'm really sitting on my hands to not like interrupt and talk about like the other side of your discernment. And like, as each of you are sharing, to say like, I remember that conversation, or I remember the interactions. Because I think it's a beautiful part to really think about discernment as an ongoing process. And it's like really is a dialogue and a conversation that you all are having with others, inclusive of our team too. What about you, Mike? Would love to hear about your discernment as you thought about applying.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it is, for me at least, it was such a scary process. I began my journey in administration during the pandemic, right in June there, as soon as the pandemic began. And I remember in the process when my principal first mentioned it to me, she graduated from the program. I remember thinking, man, I am not at all ready for this. I'm not qualified for this. This is the University of Notre Dame. That's not me, right? But I think none of us, were ready when we felt that call from Remick. I don't think any of us really ever are ready. But we just went on a retreat with some of our seniors just now, and we talked a lot about trusting in God's timing. And I think really that's what you have to do when you're applying to a program like Remick. You have to trust that when someone gives you that nudge, that's God acting through that person to say, it's your time, you're ready, do this, build up my church, build up my community and my schools. When I was doing research, trying to find some comparable programs for Remick, I struggled. I really could not find any comparable ones. I found a lot of different programs that provided you with a master's in educational leadership, but what I didn't find was ones that really did that in a uniquely Catholic way, and in a way that really focused a lot on community and building up the whole individual. I think any of us that work in Catholic schools know that any educational system is more than academics and classes, right? It has to do with building up the whole person. And I think that's what really Remick does so uniquely. And I realized that pretty quickly when I was trying to do some research into alternate programs. But, I think despite not feeling ready, I actually was ready in the end. I surprised myself a couple of times along the way. And, that would be my best advice is pray, pray, pray. God will send others to tell you you're ready, even if you don't think you are.
I feel like we should maybe also consider always having these conversations during Advent, and particularly for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. I was like, this is just perfect timing. Well, one thing that I think is really interesting across all of you as you were sharing is just how much of, really being able to see how others, whether it was your principal, or I remember having the conversation with even people within the network as well, when it comes to what you were sharing, Ryan, but like so much of this was driven by other people really identifying and thinking about that. At the same time, each of you are really sitting in an interesting space as school leaders now, to really think about, yes, your leadership is uniquely you, but there are also probably parts of your leadership that really have been impacted by your formation in Remick. You all went into these leadership roles. Some of you were in some leadership capacity, maybe even in applying or during the time of the program, but you are actively leading in schools. And so we'd like to just really start the conversation around, like, when you think back to all of your formation, those 25 months in the Remick leadership program, like, where do you see that impacting your leadership today? Like, is there a particular experience or situation where you can think back and, like, I can really make that link back to what I learned in Remick? And we'll start with you, Rebecca.
Yes, I love this question because I really feel that I was somebody who had always been told. I got kind of put into like leadership when I was younger and kind of had a gut instinct around it. And now I understand the practice behind it. And it was so empowering to go through Remick. And I feel like I know what to do. And that was been, such a relief instead of like, I think, having to follow your gut. So a couple things. First of all, it really trained me to make every decision based in mission. And if you make decisions that are based on the mission of your school, it actually becomes really easy to make hard decisions. And it becomes so much easier to have difficult conversations with upset parents, challenged students, struggling teachers, because if you root it all back to mission, it feels like magic, but clearly it's not. It's Remick and all of the learning that we do around that. But even this morning, I was presenting in a board meeting, and I will say that it was the questions. That's a scary moment when you have the question part of a board meeting after the principal's report is like, okay, here we go. And I hold on to mission, and I frankly, I nailed it. No, I'm teasing, but I saw a lot of nodding heads of some tough questions because if you can go back to that big picture of why we're here, what we're doing, that you're here to know, love, and serve the students. I mean, you kind of sound like a broken record, but in a way that's really powerful and authentic. So that for me was a huge piece of the Remick formation. And the other piece I'd say is that, and I was a religious studies teacher and in campus ministry, and it elevated my comfort in using prayer and the Catholic spirituality in my leadership. And it has made me such a more impactful and leader that I have a comfort level of talking about things like how April started this meeting. I can start a faculty meeting. I have to go to a donor event after this and talk to a room full of donors, and I'm definitely stealing some of what April said, but that you can lean into that. That was not, even as somebody who that was my field, really, even in the 17 years I'd been in schools, Remick helped me become more comfortable as a leader, starting meetings authentically in prayer, joining hard conversations with families and saying, let's just stop and pray for a minute, starting hard conversations with students. And this is going to be a hard conversation. Let's start with prayer, which gives them a minute to be like, uh-oh, and compose themselves. And the prayer part's important too. So that, like I said, I mean, I'm someone who I thought of myself as already having kind of a lot of like the instinctual elements of leadership, but the Remick program is why I got the position I have, and is why I would be so scared to do this job if I didn't have all those things built that Remick helped build in me. So.
Thanks, Rebecca. It's awesome to hear so much of even us as team, even we, as we gain comfort in just leading prayer so authentically. And no matter how confident you are as a teacher, sometimes it's totally different when you're standing in front of a board who may or may not want to agree with what you're about to say. So it's great to hear those examples in practice. What about you, Ryan? As you think back to your Remick formation, what do you feel has really impacted your leadership?
This is a hard one to say succinctly because there's so many different things that I keep thinking about. But I'm thinking through some of my notes. We got to be immersed in positive Catholic school culture when we were immersed in the Remick program. And so we got to see what good leaders do to build culture and how intentional that is. And then we got to experience what it feels like as we build, with our cohort and living together and learning together. And so I think that alone, I didn't grow up going to Catholic schools. And so I didn't, and even if I had, I might not have gone to a Catholic school that had a good culture, unfortunately. Not all do. And so I didn't quite even know what a good Catholic school culture is. And so by experiencing it, I knew, and I got to see it implemented. So I think that's a little bit more abstract, not really concrete, but that I think is one of the things that makes Remick completely unique. It's not, although for us it started out virtual, it's not meant to be that way. It's meant to be a lived experience together, which is what our experience at our schools is. We're creating a community there, and we're spending a lot of time together doing great things. And we need to figure out a way to build a positive culture around that to move our mission forward. So that was a really big one. And then there are a ton of things from class that I still remember and reference. I was looking for my textbook to see the name, Reframing Organizations. I was just talking to my athletic director literally yesterday in a meeting when we talked about the 4 frames and the importance of being a symbolic leader. And so, because she's really, we're both really good at the technical side sometimes. And then it's wait, no, it's important that we're present for this thing. And so, and I shared it with her, and it comes up so often. And it's hard to name it all. The other thing I wanted to mention as I was thinking through it that I appreciated about our classes and our conversations is the reality of Catholic education can be messy. It's not easy. We're not coming into schools that depending on our situation, that have a great, thriving, positive Catholic culture. That might not be the case. We might not be coming into a strong financial situation or a good curriculum. And so that was acknowledged. And we had really real conversations and good experiences to learn, how do you move forward in a messy situation to be a part of the solution, and how to really help create these healthy Catholic schools that still will be messy sometimes, but we're moving forward in the right direction, trying to make our Catholic schools what they should be.
Just hearing, I think about we quote it often. We probably do quote it often in terms of so what Sister Helen Frazion says, if you want to know what I write, if you want to know what I believe, just watch my actions. And I think that intentionality, I think is one thing that we hope, and it's good to hear, right? Of course, what we see within your experience, but I think also each of you also come into our learning space with your own unique experiences. And because we have a wealth of diversity in terms of geography and experience and expertise, that just further, I think, illuminates the beauty of learning, because each of you also come in with your lived experiences of this is what I've done in a school, but also this is what schooling might have even been like for me. Even to your point, Ryan, even if you're I didn't go to Catholic school myself, but it's I think it's one of the most beautiful parts of the Remick experience is that community, and that community is not one single narrative. It's always the 7,000 narratives each of us come into the space with, times the number of people in the cohort, for sure. What about you, Mike? What have you seen from your Remick experience? I know that, of course, graduation was just a few months ago, but what have you seen that's really impacted your leadership in your school?
Yeah, no, I really think, Remick can really act as a solid foundation for any new leader, or for experienced leaders. Really acts as a change agent to really solidify your foundation as a leader. I think it does that through the class and coursework, through the community that you build with your cohort mates and with your professors, and so on and so forth. All of those shared experiences really do, I think, come together to instill in you very, very solid and strong, firm foundation that says, in November, when things are going tough, everyone seems to have a bad attitude, that you can continue to champion a positive culture, and you can continue to keep your head up and a smile on your face, and really come through with the idea that Remick always mentions, which is leading with zeal. Another phrase you'll hear a lot throughout the Remick process is that they attempt to build transformational leaders. And I think one thing Remick has taught me in particular is really how, and the reasons why we want to go the extra mile to try to build a transformational Catholic school wherever you may be across the country. And I think if you really think about things from, let me get this done because it has to get done, or let me do this because it has the opportunity to transform someone's life and transform the lives of our students, then it's really worth going the extra mile I think another thing Remick does too very, very well is it teaches you how to get past the hard stuff, whether that be terminating an employee, maybe dismissing a certain student. But the hard things you don't want to do as a leader, it lets you understand why those things are necessary to get past those things so we can begin transforming the lives of the students that are entrusted to our care.
There we go. Thanks, Mike. What about you, Francesca?
There were two pretty specific things that came to mind for me when I was thinking about this question. The first was that Remick really encouraged me to adopt an asset-based lens when thinking about my own school, because it can be really hard sometimes when you're hearing about all these other things that schools have or are doing. They have this assistant principal and this resource and this board and this funding and this donor. And at times I would actually get quite overwhelmed and think, how can I do any of these transformational things if I don't have X, Y, and Z? And what Remick really granted me was this amazing gift of thinking about what we do have and all that I can do, all that we can do as a school community with what we have. In my first year, I didn't make many changes because it was my first year and I wanted to just watch and learn and observe, because I was a teacher at my school for 5 years and then assumed the leadership role. And that transition was interesting too. I had a lot of support, but just wanted to learn before making any big changes. But then this year, I made some big changes to our daily schedule with a lot of input from teachers, from students, from our support staff, and really found ways to get creative with the resources that we have. Plan things like collaborative planning time with counselors and teams of teachers and instructional coaches, and just maximizing, again, what we do have instead of focusing on what we don't. So that asset-based lens has made me so much more effective in my role and has made people notice that it's possible to do a lot more, even in our circumstances, which I work in a low income area, but we can do hard things. We can do more. It's always possible. The second thing is, and I never, ever thought I would hear myself say this in the moment as I was working on this project, but our inquiry and intervention project, which happens in your final semester as a Remick leader, has truly informed every decision that I've made, not in the sense that my specific project has informed my decisions, but that the thought process that you go through over the course of that semester with inquiring about a problem of your school and asking why and why and why, and getting down to just the most specific root causes that you can before determining a solution. Well, I can't spend an entire semester solving one problem like we did in Remick. I can ask why a million times and identify root causes before just assigning solutions that I'm not sure have much merit. And if you've experienced that as a teacher, which I'm sure we all have, right? The Band-Aid solution. We're just going to try that. We're just going to do without really addressing that root cause. It can be really frustrating. So something I've really tried to do, and that Remick has, it's just, Rebecca used the phrase baked in, like it's baked into my brain now that I need to get down to that root cause before fixing something or assigning a solution that I'm not sure is going to really be fruitful or benefit everyone involved. So inquiry and intervention, it's a course that you will know very well once you're in the program, and seems at the time overwhelming, and is in a lot of ways, but prepared me to solve problems in ways that I would not have been prepared for otherwise.
Tempted to just like take a copy of that and just like play that at the start of every second year of Remick. But it's great to see. I mean, that's the purpose of improvement science, right? That it's something that you should be able to apply in your work every day. And yeah, you won't have a whole semester to really hone in on doing some PDSA cycles and gathering some data. but rather it's this really stance of your leadership. So we're going to ask you one final question for everyone, and then we're going to open it up to some Q&A. But one thing that we are deeply aware of in the Remick Leadership Program is, yes, to Mike's point earlier, like that our goal is forming transformational Catholic school leaders. Like that is our mission. That is what we root everything we do in. We are also just really cognizant of the reality of what's happening in Catholic schools each and every year. So on average, and this is just on average, we have 100 Catholic schools that close each and every year. And there is just the reality that we know that, yes, our mission is to form transformational Catholic school leaders, but our mission is also to keep our schools open and to ensure that they're places that are vibrant and beautiful, places of both true academic excellence as well as authentic faith. And so when we think about Remick, and even thinking back to yourself in that discernment space, or even at the start of the program, how has Remick really changed your vision for the future of Catholic education? And maybe you can even anchor that in, we believe in the Remick Leadership Program, your disciples with hope to bring. Like, how has Remick really changed your vision of what Catholic schools can be, and maybe also what they should be in the future moving forward? So we'll start first with Ryan this time.
I was forming some ideas right then. I have notes, but then you made me think about something else as you were talking. So, when I think about that, I loved learning about the history of Catholic education in the United States. And I'm blessed to be at a school that serves the underserved. Like that's the mission of the Cristo Rey schools. And so, but that's kind of, when I think about that, I think it's like getting back to our roots of serving the underserved. And the other thing is that our students, like people in the world, are starving for something deeper and more meaningful. Education is not just a transfer of knowledge. It's a formative experience, and we experience that as students in the Remick program. And so I see Catholic schools playing a significant role in that. Like we're offering a holistic education that recognizes that the human person is so much more than what others might have you believe. And so by acknowledging that aspect of who we are as humans, we can provide a loving and formative environment for our students where they can learn to love themselves and to thrive and to really become the people that God has created them to be. And that's like never going to go out of style. Like we're always going to need it. So there'll always be a need for it. And so I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. What about you, Mike? How has your experience in Remick really changed your vision of what Catholic schools can and should be in the future?
Yeah. So, one thing I think is so unique about Remick is it's very special and unique ability to expand your worldview as it relates to Catholic schools. I think it allows you to view Catholic education as not just my school, my exact role, but rather to see it as a greater mission that is truly doing the work that we're all called to do, and that we're not alone in that work. I think so often in our schools we can feel as though there's nobody else who knows what we're going through. But the beautiful thing about Remick is that you're brought into community with a multitude of other people who do know what you're going through and do know why you're going through and understand why it's worth going through. I think for me, Remick proved, that being countercultural in Catholic education is valuable and it's important, right? What we're doing is important, it's valid, and it's worth fighting for. And I think the hope of every Remick leader is that the greatest days of Catholic schools are yet to come. And I believe as Remick expands that truly will be the case. But we need people like you, and we need more people who are on board with that mission and who are ready to turn this thing around.
Thank you. Francesca?
Something a lot of our families have shared with us this year that's really stuck with me is that the world is changing at a really rapid pace. There is so much going on in the outside world, particularly with the younger generations, technology, all these outside influences, things that are really impacting their development. And they want to be able to choose Catholic education for their families every year, no matter the sacrifice, no matter what it takes, because of the tradition, because of the community, because of the values. And it's them, like they are who changed my vision for this future of Catholic education. Like without them and their sacrifice and how much they believe in us, we don't exist. And I'm from Michigan. I'm from the Midwest, but I live in New York City, and watching what Catholic schools do, particularly for inner city students, has completely changed my vision for the future of Catholic education. I have students who are now in college that I was their teacher. I have seniors that are getting their college acceptances, like all of these stories that are possible because of Catholic schools. And Remick is at the heart of that, because now I know all these stories of all my other friends and principals in other cities that it's happening there too. It's so inspiring to know that I can get on our group meet with 39 other Catholic school leaders and hear about what's going on in Columbus, Ohio with Ryan, or in LA, or in Michigan, or in all these places. So I'm so grateful just for our families and how much they believe in us and the mission. And we have generations of incarnation students at our school and their families, like their parents, their grandparents. And I just really hope and pray that we exist for generations to come, because they are us, and they're the ones that matter the most.
Thanks, Francesca. Rebecca?
Yeah, I think this is an important question, because especially coming from my school has like a foot in the independent school world and a foot in the Catholic school world. And what I have found is how well positioned we are as a Catholic school coming out of, especially of the pandemic, because we can authentically talk about loving our students, and it's not a gimmick, and it's not based in just like, social emotional learning. It's true. We're based in, like servant leadership, and that we're here really to serve in a way that can be transformational, not just for the lives of our students, but for their entire family. So I think that that's really powerful. And the other thing that the future of Catholic education for me is our products. That I think you look out into the world, you look what people who have gone through Catholic education are out in the world doing, the changes they're making, the ethical leaders that they are. And that's compelling. I think it continues to be compelling. One of the things that I've heard said, and I always say it, is that the evidence of our success is not what they do at our school, it's how they live their life after they leave our school. And to me, that is what Catholic education's always been. And it feels to me in the independent world as that people are trying to like figure out how to grab onto that. And it feels clunky or inauthentic. And I think that that's a real gift, that this is what Catholic education is and has always been. And to me, that's really dynamic.
It's I'm gonna go to like a big meta moment. I was like, it's a bit also, we are a Catholic school leadership program, yes, but we are also a Catholic school. Like that's who we are. We're Catholic education. And yes, our product, we love what you all did for our community and our learning community, especially over the course of the 25 months. But our greatest outcomes are the four of you and the other 500 plus Catholic school leaders across the country and world. You are indicative of our success in our program, and not because, yes, you could have spent 25 months with us, but the reality is you all are impacting students' lives, families' lives, the beautiful faculty and staff that work in your building each and every day. And so just know that you are definitely a testament to the success. And it means, we always say, it means not, you can come, you can do the program, you can graduate, you can do all the right things. But it doesn't mean anything if you're not actually going out and doing the work. And the four of you are doing the work. And so just know of how grateful we are. And I just wanted to also just protect some time right now. Rachel will have some questions for us, hopefully, to share. And just know, as we're sharing any of these questions, if any of you want to take a stab at them, please do. We don't need to, we want to be sure to honor everyone's time this evening also, but I will go ahead and hand it off to Rachel for some Q&A.
Thanks, April. So just a reminder that you're welcome to submit questions for our panelists to answer through the Q&A function. One of the top questions that Jonathan, I, and April are asked regularly is, how do you balance it all? How do you balance being a Remick leader, doing the coursework with your family, home, and your professional life? So would love to get your thoughts on that.
I'm happy to jump in and just say it's a graduate degree from the University of Notre Dame. It's a very challenging program, and no moment is wasted. There is not a single class on any day in the summer or an assignment that you have during the year that isn't almost immediately applicable to the work you're doing. And for me, in my first year, that was still being in the classroom. But that was one of the things I was able to present to the board today as a success. I built out of my internship and practice assignment in the first fall semester, an assembly based in mission, the Dominican pillars. And then last year, I expanded it a little bit too much and got feedback from the faculty, did surveys like we learn in Remick, and have adjusted it to now it's part of our culture. And so really naming that it is the student-run, mission-based assembly that we do once a week that builds our community and builds our culture. So I will just say it's all a lot of work, but it all matters and not a moment is wasted. And I've also put aside time on the weekend. You have to put aside time on the weekend to do your work because there is, or a block of time during the week. And I say that as because I was a mom with kids and didn't do that quite soon enough and had to learn that. So definitely put several hours a week aside dedicated to Remick would be my advice.
Thanks, Rebecca. And that is something we hear regularly from all of our Remick leaders is that how differently everyone does Remick, whether that's on the weekends or before school starts. So thank you so much for sharing. Do any of you guys want to chime in as well?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things I learned from Remick was how to prioritize, because you are going to do all your assignments. They're all going to get done. But you might not be able to read every single page of that reading because in the summer, you're going to have 4 classes at one, like you just learn how to prioritize and you learn how to get done the most important things that you absolutely have to get done and that are due. And you pray and everything else is okay. And you have your cohort mates to lean on. You have amazing professors to lean on. And my biggest piece of advice for the balance, Rachel was just starting to hint at it, like finding, and Rebecca too, like finding the time that works for you. Like for me, I knew when I got home on a weekday, I was not going to get anything done. It had to be in the mornings before the day began or on a Sunday usually. And then also learning how to protect time. So Saturdays, I didn't do anything. Unless it was like a crazy weekend and I had to, but there had to be one day of the week that I wasn't Miss C at school and I wasn't a Remick student. I had to just be Francesca. And that was so important. And cohort mates really encourage that too. Everyone is so good about encouraging you to find a balance. And, you'll find people that are on your schedule too in the summer, people that want to go work out in the morning and grab breakfast, or people that are maybe sleeping later and you walk to class. And so like leaning on people is such an essential part of that balance. And yeah, you get in the rhythm for sure. It takes time though too. So giving yourself grace as you find it.
Great. Thank you so much, Francesca. So that actually ties in nicely to our next question, which is asking about what does the summer look like in reality? I think that, again, the 3 of us can answer that question all day long, but I have never lived in the dorm as a Remick leader. And so there's just a piece of it that I can't answer as robustly. So if you could just share a little bit about your experience as Remick leaders during the summer session and really the value that brings or that has brought to you as part of the program.
Yeah, I can jump in there. It is work. The summer is definitely work, but I think it's good work. If you can think of a boot camp almost for Catholic school leadership, it is very similar to that. But like any good boot camp, it's going to make you stronger. And even if you already are a leader, it's going to make you ready to be a great leader who's able to tackle even more work. As Francesca said, the community is really second to none. I don't think the Remick experience would be the same without having the summers with your peers, with your cohort mates to be able to lean on, whether it be working in the library, reading together as a group, or so on and so forth. Remick really is that community, and that community really is Remick. It's a lot of work, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to be able to look back and say, wow, if I could do that, man, I can do anything.
I can add on about the dorm a little bit. I think it's interesting. Like I was on the younger end, so I was a little closer to having recently been in a dorm, but still wasn't absolutely thrilled about the idea of going back to a dorm. And then you realize it's like the best thing ever. And I miss it so much. Like I get things I never thought I would say. No, I do, because you're all in it together. Like there's a rhythm and there's a pacing and there's like all right, we're all going to class. We're all going to eat. We're all going to mass. We're all doing this. Some people are going to bed. Some people are staying up, but there's always someone doing something that you can latch onto. And you can go be alone too. Like definitely have your alone time, protect that space too. But there's just so many people to lean on. And that dorm culture, we threw baby showers and wedding showers and celebrated people and baked birthday cakes and cookies. And you just are like celebrating everyone's milestones that are happening over that summer together with people who, for us, we spent a year talking to online and had never met in person, and then felt like we had all this catch up to do in that first summer. So we were really excited that first summer together. But yeah, that dorm life, again, even though I was on the younger end, I was still like, do I really want to go have like a community bathroom? And then you're like, yeah, this is exactly how it's supposed to be here. And I can't imagine it being any other way. So it's an essential part of the experience and truly one of the best.
Thank you. This is a question related to the summer, but being away from, this is a question from one of our applicants. So being away from my children is a big concern during the summer. How do you adjust to that? Are children able to come visit? Are families able to come visit for the weekend so they can understand where we are, what we're doing? How do you navigate that?
I can jump in. I don't know if anyone else has kids, but I have 3 daughters. I have 3 daughters still, and still a husband too. So it was, it's hard, but I will say, first of all, from my perspective, you are so busy that you're kind of like, you're going from class to class to class, then you have reading and work. My personal recommendation would not be to bring your family. But if that is something that's important to you, there are other cohort members that have. So I think it has gone both ways, and it really depends. I'm sure it depends on the age of your kids too. My youngest was 4 when I started. And I spread it out through, they had like a week with one grandparent house, another week. They kind of bounced around, and they did not care. We chatted and they were fine. But yeah, no, I mean, it was hard to be away, but they were real. Our Christmas card is photo of the family this summer at Notre Dame. I have 3 girls, and I'm at an all-girl school, so this is like my jam. But I think they were so proud of me and what I accomplished, and I was proud to be able to give that to them. So very much it became a family thing. And it is hard. A lot of our cohort mates had kids, so I won't downplay that at all. It's a challenge, and it's worth it. And none of the moms that, I mean, in some ways too, also like there's no cooking, there's no laundry. It's sort of lovely in that way, too. So it's a balance, but in terms of, tending to the kids and those hearts while you're gone, that can, it's a pull, it's a stretch. And I would do it again. Although there were moments in the program where it was a real struggle, and I will admit to that, because that was real.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'll just add on to that we always welcome family visitors. We love when families attend Mass with us or come visit on the weekends. We always welcome families to join us in the dining hall if they want to. So those are always great experiences for our community. So I do not see any other questions at this point. So I just want to, again, thank all of our panelists for being with us tonight. We appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom, now being on the other side of the Remick summer experience, Remick program experience, that is. So thank you all so much for your time, and we appreciate it.